And so it's an argument, an obstacle. I'll give you one example. The first, one of the African-American U.S. senators was a guy named, blanking on his name, from Massachusetts. Brooks, Edwin Brooks. And his Howard graduate, yes. And but his comment was, I thought a pretty interesting comment. His comment was, if Democrats had the incredible history of abolition, emancipation, voting rights, and of being for all of the Civil War amendments, you'd hear about it all the time because Democrats are good at talking about stuff like that. He said Republicans have done a terrible job, and that's why I think we have to resurrect some of this. I mean, how many of you would have, if I would have said, who do you think the founders of the NAACP are? Do you think they were Republicans or Democrats? Would everybody in here know they were all Republicans?
Yes.
All right. You know more than I know. Okay, and that's, and I don't mean that to be insulting. I don't know what you know, and you don't, I mean, I'm trying to find out what the connection is. But the thing is that I think the general public in the Republican Party hasn't talked enough about the great history and interaction between the Republican Party and black history and voting rights in our country. And I would try to make the argument, and it's an uphill battle. I mean, frankly, it is an uphill battle for me to try to convince you that we haven't changed. But that's part of me being here, and that's what I'm trying to do anyway.
Good morning. My name is Quanda Trice, and I'm a Navy veteran from Murray, Kentucky.
Oh, great.
And I am a doctoral student here at Howard University, majoring in political science. My question is that this week in Kentucky, we've had a lot of victories this week, including the legalization of a hemp bill for industrial purposes and what have you. My question to you is, being from Callaway County, McCracken County, and all of those different places in that nook and cranny, there have been such a large number of African Americans who have been incarcerated for drug issues. My question to you is, how are you going to take this industrialized new economic boost and actually allow African Americans, other people that have been disenfranchised, the poor, to actually benefit from this industrialization that's going forth in our great state?
Thank you for the question. I think it's a good question. It's also an example of, if you want to see, am I trying to work with other sides? Am I maybe different than some Republicans you've ever met? I signed a letter with our Democrat governor to ask for a waiver from No Child Left Behind, and I'm also lobbying the Democrat governor and working with our Democrat congressman from Louisville on the hemp issue to try to get a waiver at the federal level. We now have a state law that's passed, but we have to get a waiver from the federal level in order to grow it. Now, it is important that we distinguish hemp and drugs are different things. Hemp's going to be a crop. It's not a drug. It's a crop. You use it for paper. You use it for rope. You use it for clothing, biofuel. There's a lot of stuff. But it is a step forward. It was a huge victory. We won with 90% of the vote, and we started out. But this was something Republicans and Democrats working together. I hope the growing of it, that everybody will benefit from it, including African Americans. On the incarceration thing, I've got the bill on mandatory minimums. Kentucky's actually made some steps forward with having more local drug court. And I also want to distinguish that I'm not talking about standing up here saying drugs are good. What I'm saying is that even the most benign of the drugs that we talk about, marijuana, I think if you use it too much, you will lose IQ points. I think if you use it too much, you won't show up for class. I think you'll eat too many Doritos. I think there's a lot of things that aren't good about it, but also if you make a mistake and choose to do that, kids are forever doing stuff until they're 25 that they shouldn't be doing, and then all of a sudden they turn 25 and a light bulb goes off, or they get married or something, and they tend to settle down more. But I just don't want to see them in jail, and I will do everything I can to keep nonviolent criminals out of jail.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Senator. My name is Thomas Smith. I'm a freshman finance major in the School of Business from New Orleans. Changing from the more social civil rights talk, you famously filibustered the confirmation of a CIA chief in the Obama administration based on the Obama administration's lack of transparency in counterterrorism, specifically the drone program. My question starts with, your fellow Senator John Chester from Montana gave testimony on the floor of the Senate against a recently anonymously added bill with a provision that gives legal cover to agribusiness, and a provision which, quoting the Senator Chester, says the USDA has the right to ignore any judicial rulings on GMO crops. Those in your ideological party, the Tea Party, have spoken out vehemently against it. And did you have any knowledge of the provision on the floor and the floor testimony of John Tester from Montana? And if you did, why did it not deserve the filibuster the CIA confirmation did, or your proposed filibuster of any gun legislation?
Okay. Help me understand a little bit again, just in your own words again. This was about GMO, the genetically modified corn and things like that.
It's been commonly called the Monsanto Protection Act.
Okay. But explain to me again exactly what we had a lot of votes recently, and I'm not sure I know the details real well of this.
Senator John Tester, Democrat from Montana, was on the Senate floor, and he pointed out a provision in a recent appropriations bill, I believe it was, having to do a lot with agriculture, and in it there was a provision that basically, in his words, tells the USDA to ignore any judicial rulings or possible judicial rulings on GMO foods, which in a sense could give legal immunity to agribusiness, like companies like Monsanto.
And I can't remember if we actually had a vote on this or not. Did it pass by voice vote?
Yes, it was passed and signed by President Obama.
By voice vote. I think that I'm against giving immunity to big corporations in general. Okay? I think, for example, and this is a different subject but may be related, is that when we give immunity, like for Google, to turn over your records of what you search on your computer, I think that's a mistake because then they're going to violate your contract. The same with Monsanto or any company. If there's an obligation to deliver food that is not harmful to you and they deliver something that a court says is harmful, then I think we should go with the courts and that the government shouldn't override that. The specific vote I'll have to look into because I really don't remember the details. But that's the best I can do for an answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Patterson. I'm a sophomore economics major, political science minor from Chicago. And my question is, recently the state of Maryland repealed the use of the death penalty. A lot of organizations, including the NAACP, which I'm a part of, have been working to get capital punishment repealed nationwide because it is applied unfairly to racial minorities. So I wanted to get your views on the death penalty and the purpose it serves in our criminal justice system today, if any.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on the death penalty. I think of it sometimes in a personal way, that if someone came into my house and killed my wife, if I were there at the time, I'd have no problem pulling the trigger to kill him to defend my wife. Also, a week or two later, I just don't know if I'm a forgiving enough person. I'd be probably for executing. I mean, just that's my emotion coming out. But I also realize that the court system's made mistakes, and even while I'm a big, huge fan of our court system of having a trial by jury and having a judge and having all those things, still there are evidence, and some of it comes from Illinois on rape, where some rape cases involving murder also, it was proven time after time that they were making mistakes, that the courts were making mistakes. So I do have some reservations, and I'm not sure I know exactly what the answer is. I do think that most penalties for crime should be done at the state level, not the federal level. So I'm not a big fan of federal death sentences for anything other than maybe treason.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Senator. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Darian Unger. I'm a professor here in the School of Business. I thank you for coming, despite the fact that you have spoken out against the Civil Rights Act, against the Voting Rights Act, and you've done it as a champion of individual liberties and states' rights, and so I wonder, aside from the moral reasons not to discriminate, of which there are many, when is it okay legally to discriminate, according to you?
Well, I think it's a mischaracterization of my position. Mischaracterization. I've never been against the Civil Rights Act, ever. And I still continue to be for the Civil Rights Act as well as enforcement of the 14th Amendment. Well, there was a long interview that had a long extended conversation about the ramifications beyond race, and I have been concerned about the ramifications of certain portions of the Civil Rights Act beyond race, as they are now being applied to smoking, menus, listing calories and things on menus, and guns. And so I do question some of the ramifications and the extensions, but I've never questioned the Civil Rights Act and never come out in opposition to the Civil Rights Act, nor have I ever introduced anything to alter the Civil Rights Act. So your characterization is incorrect.
Yes,
sir. Good morning. My name is Jabari Zakia. I'm a native Washingtonian living in the colonial city of Banneker City. And to correct you, D.C. residents pay more in federal taxes than they get back from the federal government. But my questions are this. The 14th Amendment was passed to protect those enslaved Africans coming out of slavery and not corporations. Do you believe that corporations are people that have the same protections as natural citizens without any of the negativities of natural citizens? And my second question is that the Constitution requires that Congress declare war. The power to declare war is in the Congress' hand. Bill Clinton was impeached by the Republican House because he allegedly lied about an affair. Based on that premise, should George Bush be considered a war criminal for lying to getting the United States into the war with Iraq? And in the same provision, should Barack Obama be impeached for getting into Libya without an act of Congress?
How about yes, no, no, yes, no? No, seriously, I'll try to answer some of the questions. On corporations, whether they should be people, they're obviously not the same as people. So you don't get a trial by jury and you don't have habeas corpus and necessarily the same due process as an individual gets. And I think sometimes corporations, particularly big corporations, use government to get special privileges, and I'm against that. I'm against special tax deductions for corporations. I'm also against anything that takes your money and props up or gives special privilege to corporations. However, on the other side, corporations do have a very important function in our society. So let's say when you graduate and you get out, you start a plumbing business, and you're doing pretty well, but then someone sues you. One of your pipes break and it was an accident, maybe your supplier wasn't good, but now all of your profit, all of your assets are taken by the courts. Should they be able to also get your house and anything else you've saved for, or should the corporation protect you a little bit through bankruptcy? So bankruptcy is debated all the time on whether it should go towards creditors or towards the debtor. And I think there has to be some balance and there has to be some protection because it does help you. You'll meet people in your life who've been bankrupt 3 times and then go on to hit it big. And if we ruin them, we don't put people in prison for anymore, but if we ruined them and said, oh, we're going to take your house and everything else, I also see it from my perspective. I'm a physician. I try to do my best all the time, but I'm human. Has anybody ever had an infection that I operated on? But should they be able to come and take my house and things that I've worked for 20 or 30 years? I have a corporation that somewhat secludes me from people coming and taking their house. So I think about that on corporations. It's not all big, huge corporations. Sometimes it's mom and pops or individual businesses like your parents might have. On declaration of war, absolutely, I'm opposed to Republican or Democrat presidents taking us to war without a declaration. How about 2 more?